Davis?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Pastor Davis. I voted in the Dahlgren district. Been pastor of Tabernacle Baptist Church for the past 40. Y'all were born except for Mr. Bush there. 48 years. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity to lead in the word of prayer. So let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we do bow, thanking you for the wonderful privilege, Lord, to approach the throne of grace. And Lord, we're so thankful that it's a throne of grace and not a throne of judgment. Lord, you exhort us to, first of all, supplications and prayers and intercessions and giving of thanks to be made for all men, for all that are in authority. And I can't think of any higher responsibility than being the teachers and, Lord, those involved in our children's education, that they may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and honesty. Well, this is good, the Bible says, and acceptable in the sight of the Lord God and our Savior Jesus Christ. Will of all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth, for there is one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus. Lord, we're thankful again. So often, we're always so concerned about, Lord, with what's our concerns, what we're going through right now. Sometimes we're enumerated by our own cares, our own cries, our own crises, our own concerns, our own ambitions. But Lord, may we be busy, or we're often too busy, Lord, with the wood, hay, and stubble of life. We ask you to restore our concerns for your heart, for your heart's cries. And Lord, may we be used of you mightily to, Lord, to restore, Lord, godliness in our nation. We love you because you first loved us. And so tonight we do pray for our school board. We pray for David Bush and pray, Lord, for Ed Franks and Carrie Cleveland. We pray, Lord, for Colleen Davis and Kathy Hoover. Lord, bless these and give them wisdom as they lead, Lord, and try to do what, Lord, they believe that you would have them to do. We pray for Dr. Boyd, Lord, as he is the superintendent. We, God, give him wisdom and understanding. And Lord, for the teachers who desire our prayers, I pray for the teachers and the principals and all those, Lord, and the students who would desire for us to pray for them. We ask you, Lord, to work and help us to make King George County Schools the best in the state. We will praise you and thank you for all that you accomplish and all that you do in Jesus' wonderful name we pray. Amen and amen. God bless you.
The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by the King George Middle School All District Band, and that will be followed by a moment of silence.
Flag over there. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, let's hear about this All District Band.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. As you know, King George Middle School was asked to share an instructional highlight from what's been going on at the middle school this semester and this year. And we were very grateful that we were asked by Dr. Nice to be able to come in and give that presentation. My name is Kevin Cheatham. I'm one of the band directors at King George Middle School, and I brought with me 8 of the 10 students who made all district band this year. You can wave when I call your name. We had a 6th grader who was Fia Means, made the band, a 7th grader, Leah Miller, in 8th grade, Chase Miller, Sandy Miller, Maddox Yates, Eli Nicoletti, Irene Rivera Reyes, Sydney Landreth, and we also had Christian Palmer and Tyler Tremper make the band, who weren't able to be here with us this evening. But this was a great opportunity for our students to go perform on February 7th and 8th at Stafford High School. And I have a couple of them that are going to come up and explain kind of what it was, how they got selected, and what they learned from it. So I want to start with Irene. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Irene, and I play the trumpet. I was in all-district band, which is essentially a select group of band students within a district chosen by audition. The audition requires you to do various things like memorize scales and play surprise pieces in front of judges. After that, you are scored, and depending on the score you get, it will decide if you make the band or not. Then, the band will practice for 2 days and then play a mini concert for family and friends.
My name is Sydney, and I auditioned and made the all-district band in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. In this year's concert, I was fairy chair and percussion. This concert is important because it teaches kids to take on the challenge of learning music that is harder than they're used to, and they have to learn it fast. It has made me play better, and I can sight read music quickly. I've been able to use what I've learned, and last fall, I became part of the King George Royal Regiment Marching Band in the pit section. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eli Nicoletti. I was in the district band this year, and only this year. I made it to the concert band, clarinet, fourth chair. Some of the things that you can learn is like learning how to overcome challenges in a short amount of time. Just for the auditions. Another thing you can learn is how to work as a team and develop trust in a short amount of time. These are all important because they're like very important life skills. And this is also important because it can help you gain confidence in yourself and like your skills.
Thank you.
As always, we're very grateful to Dr. Nice and for the other administration at King George Middle School for allowing us to have this opportunity, as well as for transportation and getting us there and getting us home at crazy hours with some weird weather delays this year. But we're very grateful for the opportunity to come and present, and we thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, anybody can answer this, but again, I often ask this question: what's the most enjoyable part of being part of the middle school band? What do you enjoy the most?
Any of you want to come forward and be brave about that one?
Now, Liam, why don't you answer that for us?
My favorite part about band is the stupid video Friday. On Friday.
Okay, what does that mean? Hold on, you can't just walk away. Sorry.
The least educational thing that we do.
On Fridays, if the band is good, then we get to watch like a really stupid video.
All right, I get it.
All pertaining to music.
Of course, yes. And what was the hardest thing? What's the most difficult thing about being in the band?
It's playing together for like, it's kind of hard to play as a group because we're all making different sounds. We're at different places, and like we need a director to put it together. And that's my statement.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Madam Chair, no questions, but just wanted to say thank you for coming and sharing that information with us, and congratulations to all of you for making the band, putting in all the hard work. I know it's a lot of work. When I was in middle school, I played the violin. I was terrible. Didn't make the band.
Thank you for the time that you guys put into the students and giving them the opportunity to learn. And for him to say that the 3 bullet points was overcoming challenges, working as a team, and building trust. Those are such valuable things to learn at such a young age. So good job to you guys too, and good job, band.
Congratulations, guys. Thanks so much.
Sure.
No. Okay. Next, we have, is anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. If you have not signed up for public comment, please see the clerk now to sign up. Public comment is a time for the community to present matters that they believe deserve the board's attention. Comments are one-way communication from the community member to the school board, and they are not a form of dialogue or debate. The school board applies the following procedures to all speakers and does not discriminate based on the identity of the speaker or the viewpoint of the speaker. Comments should be presented in a courteous, respectful, and appropriate manner. The public shall address the school board only on matters that are related to the services and policies of the school division. Speeches that cause disruption to the meeting, promote private business ventures, involve threats of any kind, involve intimidating language, relate to public office campaigns, involve complaints identifying individual students, or personal attacks of staff members is prohibited. Proper decorum and the provision of this procedural directive are expected to be followed at all public meetings of the school board. The members of the audience shall conduct themselves in the same manner as outlined above for the individual speakers and shall not disrupt an open public meeting of the school board nor incite others to do so. At the discretion of the chair, any person violating the rules listed above may be asked to leave the board meetings. When recognized by the chair, speakers will be asked to identify themselves by name, state their relationship to the school division, and indicate in which magisterial district they reside. Commentary during public comment time is limited to 3 minutes. Our first speaker of the evening is Sherman Davis.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. I am Pastor Davis, the same one who was here a while ago, and I'm here to try to encourage each of you. I vote in the Dahlgren District, and I've just come out each time to encourage. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Matthew 14 of the story of Jesus walking on the water, and there's a storm, and Jesus comes, and I don't know what each of you are going through, the trials and temptations and all that you go through by being board members, but anyway, there's a storm taking place, and Jesus comes walking on the water on the storm, and as he approaches the ship, Peter says, "Lord, if it's you, bid me to come to you." Well, the Lord can't deny himself, so he said one word, "Come." And Peter stepped out, Apostle Peter stepped out on the water, started walking towards the Lord, and he began to sink. And of course, the Lord reached out and picked him up and put him back to the boat. But the point is, not only did Jesus walk on the water, but Jesus walked on the storm. He didn't call Peter on a calm sea. He called Peter to step out in the midst of a storm. I don't know what kind of storms you may be going through in life, but I want you to understand that if you fixate yourself on the storm rather than the one who can walk on the storm, it'll crush you. People, now we have social media today, and folks can say anything, not to be true, they can just say it. And but whatever the storm is, if you get fixated on that, it will crush you, it will take you down. So I want to encourage you today not to be fixated on whatever the trial is, whatever the storm is you're going through, but be fixated on Jesus Christ, who is the one who will get you through the storm and not allow it to crush. And so Jesus is calling us all to get out of the boat. He didn't call Peter on the calm. And if you're waiting on calm seas, I've been pastoring 48 years. And if I'm waiting on the seas to be calm, to do that, every day, every week, there's a storm. And so just realize that they're coming. And if you're waiting on the calm waters, you may not make it, okay? And just trust the Lord. And he's called us out of the boat because he is with you in the storm. And so just trust him. Keep on trusting. Keep on looking up. Keep on asking the Lord to give you the strength. No matter what storm you're going through, you can do it by the grace of God. Grace, God's redemption at Christ's expense. GRACE. Trust him. And he's never let you down. God bless you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, we have Candace Poltz.
Good evening. My name is Candace Poles, and I am a first grade teacher at Potomac Elementary, and I reside here in King George. I'm here tonight because many teachers and parents wrote to our superintendent and to our school board in regards to the meeting held without public notice that added time to our calendar after the teachers were asked to prepare packets at the last minute to protect our instructional time. I was disappointed in the response that we received from our superintendent and the copied and paste message we received from our chairperson that directed us back to the superintendent. So were our concerns really addressed? Were they even read? My questions and concerns were never addressed by the superintendent or the chairperson. Dr. Boyd's condescending message made me feel like I'm not putting my students first when that's all I ever do, putting my family and my health on the back burner daily. In my 10 years of teaching, all at Potomac, I have been awarded PES Teacher of the Year my 2nd year, PTA Outstanding Educator of the Year my 9th year. I started tutoring during COVID, taking on 10 to 12 students a week, and I've been teaching summer school for the last 7 to 8 years. This doesn't sound like a teacher who doesn't have her students' best interests at heart. It's always been my top priority. I'm an extremely dedicated educator, but I also know the value of my time. It is obvious that the leaders in our division and those asked to represent our community are out of touch with the reality of what life is really like in the classrooms. Our task list is already unmanageable. Students' needs and behaviors are the highest we've ever seen, and our physical and mental health is at risk. So how are students' needs going to be met if teachers have no time and are continuously stressed to meet deadlines with only 40 minutes a day to complete all the necessary tasks to run a classroom, go to the bathroom, and maybe even take a 5-minute break, you know, the one where you don't actually have to do any work? I am going to just read the response that restates all of my questions that I sent back to the chairperson. So I just wanted to know why the meeting was held without the public being made aware. What was the urgency? Why were parents and staff not able to offer other options other than taking teachers' planning time, if this change was indeed necessary? These changes added 1 day to our calendar time, and if Dr. Boyd and the school board were really looking at the best interests of the students, this time would have been taken from spring break, not teachers' planning time. These kids will leave at the end of March for a 9-day break and come back like it's day one all over again, with another 4-day weekend shortly after. All this time right before state testing. Not sure how the 2 days and the 1 whole day will make any difference besides taking the much needed time from already overworked and underpaid teachers. So if anybody would like to answer my questions, I am still waiting. So if your purpose is to put students learning first, how did taking the much needed planning and professional development time from our teachers, leaving us exhausted and underprepared, put our students first? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kate Jones.
Hi, my name is Kate Jones, and I reside in the Dahlgren District. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself, a 3rd grade teacher, and other students, other teachers in King George County Schools regarding the recent decision by the board and superintendent to remove 1 teacher workday and several half days from the calendar. I've emailed the board twice. I've received 2 emails in response to my inquiry from the same people Candace named, and one made me feel as if I were putting students first, I wouldn't be concerned about losing teacher work time. Our King George County school teachers are putting students first, and it's precisely the reason why I'm addressing you tonight. No one chooses this job for the fame or the fortune. We are here because we want to help children strive to be the best students and future citizens that they can possibly be. While teachers are putting our students first, teachers cannot pour from an empty cup, and that's where we are. As a teacher of 25 years, I know how important face-to-face instructional time is for students and for teachers, and I respect the decisions the board makes to prioritize this valuable time. However, our teachers are burdened with an extraordinary amount of tasks and duties which cause us to use our own personal time to do our jobs. We plan, grade, communicate with families, and work on report cards on our own time. Teachers do get 40 minutes of planning time daily, not nearly enough for all that a teacher is required to do to be successful. 40 minutes per day is not enough time to get these tasks accomplished with high quality outcomes. Also, there are times that meetings are scheduled during instructional time, and we are required to have subs in our classroom. If instructional time is being prioritized, then why are we pulling teachers out of classrooms during the school day? The 2 half days that were turned into full days were supposed to be time dedicated to our staff for our VLA training, 30 hours of training. When are we supposed to complete the rest of the training modules that are required to be done by the end of the year? That is a state requirement and must be done. That is now another task that will fall on us to do on our own time. What other profession requires their employees to give up their personal time to do their job with no compensation? What other profession requires teachers to do their training during their own personal time? The workday on March 7th fell at report card time. That day should have been spent working on report cards and doing comments for families, discussing and prepping SOL materials and gearing up for Q4. Many other meetings were also scheduled on that day. When are those going to happen? Those tasks of report cards will now also fall on teachers' personal time. I ask that you please consider all that is required of teachers on a daily basis and provide us with much needed work days and time to do all we need to do to be successful at our jobs. Planning engaging lessons and activities and collaborating with our teams requires time. If we are not given the time, then students aren't getting meaningful and engaging lessons. Teachers cannot pour from an empty cup.
Thank you. Next, we have Dustin Nichols.
Hello, my name is Dustin Nichols. I live in Spotsylvania County, but I'm a third grade teacher at Sealston Elementary. And I'd like to take a few minutes to address the recent calendar changes that were made without any warning. I believe the teachers who are opposed to the calendar changes have made very valid points. And I could make reference to the number of days and hours required, the time needed for the VLA modules, or the lack of planning time as part of the reason many of us are frustrated. Instead, I'd like to focus on the way this decision was made and then announced. The school board met without any prior notice to families or teachers during the middle of a workday. Then after the decision was made, which directly affected those families and teachers, there was an email sent out on a Friday afternoon after we had left for the day about the upcoming changes. The teacher workdays were originally added to the calendar to allow the teachers the time to finish the required VLA modules. Unfortunately, some of that time had already been used up by the scheduled meetings during those workdays. I know that some teachers have had to go to the math textbook adoption meetings on those workdays, as I was one of many teachers. Our last workday fell on the day in which we decided to make those 3 days of asynchronous learning. That morning, I was at a textbook adoption meeting when we found out. We were informed that we were doing this extra work now so that we would not need to add the days to the calendar later, but apparently that was not true. Instead of getting any modules or meaningful planning done that day, I spent my morning at the textbook adoption meeting. Then when I got back to Sealston, we had a meeting about the asynchronous days. After the meeting, I had to come up with the work and then copy it all because it was supposed to be done by the next workday. So all of this took my entire workday. It was a total loss and a waste of time, especially since we didn't save any of the days that they said we were going to save. Then we got an email response to many of the teachers' concerns that came across as how I felt it was very condescending. It felt as if the superintendent was thanking those who praised the changes and was trying to guilt those who opposed the changes or how those changes were made. This was followed by a copy and paste email from one of the school board members stating that all of our concerns had been addressed. This was another act of blatant disregard for the teachers' input and opinions. I feel confident in saying that if you're trying to retain good teachers or boost morale, this is not the way to do it. Teachers have forever been guilted into working longer than contracted hours because we need to do it for the kids. We wouldn't be in this profession if we weren't trying to always do what's best for our kids. Dr. Boyd has said many times that the teachers in King George County always aim to exceed the bare minimum and deliver the highest quality of instruction, and he's absolutely right. However, we're not compensated as such or treated as if our opinions are valued. We are tired of the lip service and want to be shown that we are valued by your actions. If I could only go over a little bit, I ask that you reconsider some of these changes, and I fear that without you showing that you value your teachers by your actions instead of just your words, many good teachers may leave to other surrounding counties. If King George schools are committed to prioritize student success, then they must also be committed to retaining high-quality teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Boyd, superintendent comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First, let me thank Pastor Davis. I thought it was a very, very timely message tonight. I have certainly been focusing on storms lately, and literally focusing on winter storms. And if my job this year as meteorologist is done, I am more than happy to give up the reins of being meteorologist. Now to the teachers that came tonight, thank you all for coming. I certainly appreciate it. I will not speak for the board. I've spoken with the board quite a bit. I'll be speaking for myself this evening. I want you guys to know that I appreciate you coming out tonight and your dedication to the school division. I've spent all of my career, 25 years now, really promoting the value that a teacher has on a child. The time you give, the dedication you have to your children, I think there's immense value to that. I've also spent the same amount of time in my career advocating for, as was described, the empty cup that we're continuing to pour out of. There's not enough time in the day to meet all the demands that we have been placed upon us. And as your superintendent, if you're asking me to advocate for you when it comes to additional state demands, when it comes to competing for fair salaries, when it comes to making sure that we are a top-ranked school division, I will continue to be there for you in that endeavor. I promise you that. But when it comes to putting our kids at the forefront and providing them an opportunity for a quality education, I will be putting them there. Okay, we talked about, and I heard tonight, that we're pouring out of an empty cup, and I couldn't agree with you more. There's a ton of demands. VLA is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the added demands we place on educators right now. I'll continue in that fight. So with the limited amount of time that we have left and the value that I know you have, why would we not take every single minute we have left, given the fact, and I won't go through all the numbers right now, but we've lost 10.5 days to snow and another week, if we want to start counting days, time that we would have been in front of our children this year. I can tell you as a former high school principal, and I can tell you now as a superintendent, there are many teachers right now that are rolling over in their bed at night thinking, I've got kids that are unprepared for AP exams. I've got kids that are getting ready to set for SOL tests that might determine whether or not they graduate from high school. Rolling over in their beds right now, wondering if in the absence of 15 instructional days, are they going to be able to deliver to those children? They're wondering that about themselves as well because they will be held accountable. As we all know, we're held accountable for those results. So why would we not, with every minute we have left, focus on the children and provide as much as we possibly can? And I'll be happy to make the argument with you that 2 days may not be enough. If you look around at our other school divisions right now, I know some of you are new to education. The concept of making up snow days is not a new one. The concept of the school board making the decision on how to adjust a calendar because of an influx of snow days is not a new one. All of our communities around us right now have lost President's Day, they've lost spring break, they've extended the school day. In my career, I've gone to school on Saturdays, I've extended the school year. What we were trying to do in this effort, and really one of the reasons for the quick turnaround, was to take the time that we know we have left already together and focus that time with you in front of children. We think that's valuable. We think that's important. And if that comes at the expense of a VLA module or something of that nature, I'm willing to take that bullet for you. But I'm not willing to look at our kids in our community and say we couldn't deliver because we had to do other things. I'm not willing to do that. So that's the point I'll make on that. And the last point I'll make here is there's been a lot of comments about the meeting and how it took place. So I want to take a step back for a minute and let's talk about this meeting where the school board got together to figure out how to get our kids in school. That was the content of that meeting. A regular meeting per policy requires 3 days advance notice. A special meeting, which this was, which most are in terms of making up time for snow because you're on a quick turnaround, as they have been in every other school division around us, only requires notice to the community when notice is made available to our board. we figured out we could pull that meeting together Friday morning. And we pulled it together Friday morning because the earliest possible date that we could have used where we had time with students and with teachers in the building was when? Was Wednesday of last week, which I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but I've heard students telling me, man, last week was the first full week of school I've had, I think, in this year. And I felt good about it. I felt good about coming to school for a whole week. I got into a rhythm. First full week of school in a long time. So when you knew, our board knew, what the content of the meeting was figuring out how to get our kids back in school for as many hours as we possibly could before they sat for state exams. And really, the intent and the purpose was because we believe that there is great, great, great value in you being not in front of a computer screen, but being in front of our children and providing as much time as you can and providing them as much opportunity as they can get before they have high stakes tests that they have to sit before. So I know that was long, but I'll stop there, Madam Chair. And as you can tell, I feel very passionate about you all and what you provide, but even just as equally are our kids and what they deserve. So without extending our school year any longer, I personally believe, and again, I'm not speaking for the board, that this was the best use of the remaining time we have left. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? No, okay, moving right along. I believe that our instructional highlight with the band has already been presented. So next we have the Gift Advisory Annual Report.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chairman Hoover, Dr. Boyd, and esteemed members of the school board. I am Angie Harris, and I'm supervisor of elementary instruction, and I also serve on our Division Gifted Advisory Committee. So thank you for the opportunity for us tonight to kind of share with you a little bit of what our committee has been working on this year. Also, Mr. Dustin Pfeiffer is here with me. He serves as the chairman of our Gifted Advisory Committee. And together, we're going to share the goals established by the committee this year and give you a little snapshot of the gifted programming and the opportunities that we offer at each of the schools. So let's just dive right in. Our Gifted Advisory Committee this year is made up, we have 22 committee members, which includes parents, teachers, administrators, and a school board representative. The committee will meet 3 times a year. Mr. Dustin Pfeiffer, as I've mentioned, is our chairman of our committee, and Ms. Kathy Hoover is our school board representative. So I'd like to appreciate all their leadership in our committee to this point. Our goals that our committee set, our first meeting we held in the early fall. Our goals that we wanted to accomplish this year is we wanted to increase communication and professional development of the gifted program. We wanted to explore ways to expose and identify more underrepresented populations to our gifted program. And we also wanted to continue to discuss and revise and make revisions if needed to our current gifted plan that you guys approved last year. We have a 5-year plan. So with that said, what does our current gifted population look like? I think we are accomplished some of these goals. At this time, we have 203 students that are identified as gifted students, K to 12. We have 106 are males, 97 are females. We have 15 twice exceptional students, and we have 6 different races represented in this population. The program now represents about 4.6 of our school population, which is alignment with the state and national norms. So at this time, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to our chairman, Mr. Pfeiffer, and he's going to share with you the services and different opportunities that we have at each of the school levels. Mr. Pfeiffer.
Good evening, members of the board. I want to thank all the members of Gifted Advisory Committee and Miss Kathy Hoover. it's nice to have a group of people that can get together and kind of advocate for these students. I want to go over what the services look like and then kind of what's next for our gifted programming. In grades K through 2, we only identify students for English language arts, and right now we only have 5 students identified. They meet with a gifted resource teacher twice weekly at their home school at Sealson at Potomac and King George Elementary School. They get enriching lessons beyond what they would get in a general kindergarten, first or second grade classroom. They also get some critical thinking, creative thinking, games and activities to kind of challenge them beyond what they're getting. For example, the ones I work with at King George Elementary School, we had a quick turnaround, but we read through the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe before they went to the play, since I knew they were going to the play. That's on a 5th grade reading level, and I had 1st and 2nd graders kind of reading through it, studying it, analyzing, looking at symbolism and things like that in it. So it gives them that opportunity just for twice a week to leave the classroom, get pulled out, and work on more engaging, more challenging activities. In grades 3 through 5, that's when our programming really starts. Students attend King George Elementary School full-time for gifted instruction in their identified area, either mathematics or language arts. We currently have 62 students identified. The way the language arts program works is that we meet the state required education. We use the same curriculum as the gen ed class, but then we extend beyond that, beyond grade level expectations. They're working through novel units that aren't included in the reading curriculum, and it gives them a chance to kind of be pushed and challenged a little bit more. In the math, in 3rd grade, it's kind of the same. They get enrichment outside of the state required curriculum, but in 4th grade, they start accelerating a little bit more, and in 5th grade is when they're actually tested at the upper levels. So 5th grade takes their 6th grade SOL, and then as I go on to the middle school, I'll talk about what the math program looks like there. One thing I highlighted last year and want to continue to highlight is the summer enrichment program that we offer for identified gifted students. We're looking forward to having our 3rd year of that. The 2nd and 3rd week after school is out. Last year we had the Dahlgren STEM Outreach come up and offer a plethora of classes for the students. They did Lego Spike programming robots. They did an infrared lighting one. They played with liquid nitrogen. They had the interns from down at the base come up and work with the kids. That was really cool. We had an AI class all about AI and kind of just an introductory into what it is, kind of how it works, being very cautious with it. We had cryptology, forensics. The King George Sheriff's Department brought the forensics truck over for a field trip. The picture was in there earlier. They got to go through the forensic unit truck and look at all the things, had a guest speaker. We had podcasting. We had a guest speaker for that one. The kids, we had different types of podcasts. Some did pop culture. One group wrote their own scary story and kind of narrated that through. They learned about content and publishing and things like that. We had a creative writing class, logic and strategy games. We had a guest come in and teach the kids chess, some of them that didn't know how to do it. Science adventures, breakout rooms, and all the students participated in a mini economy project where they designed prototypes and then manufactured. The kids throughout the week earned currency. And then at the end, each team set up their booth and sold their items. And then we calculated what was their cost and how much they made off of it. So there's a bunch of the highlights from that. The liquid nitrogen up in the top left. The forensics unit, they did teeth and fingerprinting, teeth imprints and fingerprinting to solve crimes that they had. The chest down in the bottom. We worked with infrared lighting, and they brought in special glasses where we could see the spectrum of light, and the students looked at fluorescent lights versus LED lights versus incandescent bulbs, and they could see how the light spectrum was different in each one. So very valuable experience for them. In middle school and high school, in middle school, grades 6 through 8, we have 61 students. The language arts classes, the identified students participate in specific language arts classes that are accelerated beyond. And then math, as I said, in 5th grade, they take the 6th grade SOL. In middle school, the sixth graders take Math 8. Seventh graders identified take Algebra 1, and by eighth grade, they've completed geometry. In grades 9 through 12, they're counseled into what would be their strength-specific classes. They can take the honors, advanced placement, dual enrollment with the differentiated curriculums there. And then they have the option to apply to CGS, CBGS, and the Academy of Technology and Innovation. This is a slide that just kind of talks about all of them on there. CGS and CBGS, I believe you guys are all pretty familiar with. They're half-day programs. The ATI program is a full-day one at Mary Washington and Stafford. And then they also have the option to apply for the Summer Residential Governor School, which is, I don't remember if it's a week-long, 2 weeks, programming in math, science, technology, humanities. There's a ton of options for the high school kids. Fredericksburg Regional Governor School is also available for rising 7th through 12th graders. It takes place in Fredericksburg at James Monroe High School. That's kind of where it's housed out of. And I know 7th grade does wetlands, 8th grade is caves and minerals, 9th grade is environmental technology, and then 10th, 11th, and 12th, they can do chemistry, engineering, and there's a mentorship program. All right, so what's next for Gifted Advisory? We want to continue to enhance that communication with families, especially at the elementary level. Ms. Murgis, our gifted math teacher at King George Elementary, has implemented a quarterly newsletter going to families just to kind of keep them in the loop of upcoming opportunities for the students and what's going on in gifted services. We continue to look at the current plan, assess its effectiveness and how it can better meet the needs of the students. And every couple years, the gifted resource teachers usually reach out to Sealson and Potomac to talk with the teachers there about referring students for gifted services. What does that look like in a student? Is it just a high achieving student, or is it the student who's maybe a little off task but very capable? And we try to get a lot of our referrals from the students who see those kids in the classroom every single day. They know those kids best. They know where they are among their peers. So usually every other year we reach out to all the elementary school staffs to make sure that they know that we're still around, and they're free to recommend students for that. And then our next advisory committee meeting is March 19th, open to the public, 4:15 at the school board office.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. Does anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to, say thank you for all that you guys do. I'm actually on the CGS board. I just started, so I don't know a lot of information about it, but I think just making the students aware of these opportunities is critical, especially, in our community, making sure that everyone knows that there's these opportunities available for them, if they qualify. So I appreciate it. I love the program, and I hope that one of my kids can get in it one day, but they're probably a little bit too lazy.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate all the parents that come out as well, in addition to the two of you and all the other staff members. So it's a really great program, and you guys put a lot of effort into it. Thank you. Moving on, we have no student representative comment. Or does anybody have anything from a student rep to read? Okay, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair. Pursuant to State Code Section 2-2-3712A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene in a closed meeting to review hires, substitutes, resignations, stipends, and requirements and retirements as permitted under 2.2-3711A-1 of the Code of Virginia.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now in closed session.
County School Board return to open session and certify that pursuant to State Code Section 2.2-3712D, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the public body.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Oh, that's right. Second and third.
Certified.
So certify.
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 Okay. Motion carries. We are back in open session. Chair, sorry. I just wanted to do that.
Now we have to vote for the decision.
Okay. Now the action resulting from the closed meeting. Do we have a motion to approve personnel as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the personnel as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay. Up for discussion tonight first is the
We have the consent agenda. Consent agenda first.
agenda.
It's okay. The meeting, the minutes.
Has everybody had a chance to look at those? And does anybody have any comments?
You want to approve them all?
Yeah, if there's, I think we can't approve them all unless somebody has a concern to pull one out.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 10th and February 21st as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Now let's go on to the policy update for college and career readiness.
Yes, Madam Chair. So this policy is an update from the last VSB revision. The policy is updated to enact really a change in the previous General Assembly to match House Bill 1087 and Senate Bill 627. If you look at the content of the policy IJD, what you'll see is that the college and career readiness now references two programs that the community college has, which is titled the Passport Program and the Uniform Certificate of General Studies Program. These are programs that are offered through the Virginia Community College Network, and now this policy references our students' ability to seek college credits through those programs. And we are in a position in King George County Schools to offer those, so I would ask for approval this evening.
Awesome.
Does anybody have any discussion about that?
I make a motion that we approve the policy code IJD as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we had a task to discuss goals of the school board. Now I can't find my notes. So there was two themes here, students and teachers. So I'm going to combine, and they're not necessarily in any order, but the goal to diminish the number of tests given every year and increase interest in AP and dual credit courses. I think that can be combined because that's very student oriented. And then as far as teachers go, we had high expectations and leadership training for principals and staff. So I think leadership was a common goal there as well. So somehow we can roll that into a goal and put it into words, right? And then the third thing was also students and substance abuse education for students. And I think we've worked on that this year, and that was a goal for us, but we need to continue on. And that, thank you everybody who gave feedback for that. I think that it's all about the students and the teachers. So I'll put those into writing and we can publish them or whatever. And that's that. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
You did get mine?
I got yours.
Okay.
Yep. Yours
It's fine.
was one of the ones that I read. And then moving on, we have the fiscal year 24 funds balance.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wanted to provide the board an update on the fund balance. If you remember, I went to the Board of Supervisors to request our end of the year fund balance from FY24, and they did award it to King George County Schools. It really broke down into 3 areas, and I wanted to provide an update to the board on those 3 areas. First was the large chunk of that money was $900,000 for the math curriculum that's required by the state. I spoke with our instructional team recently, and we are still waiting for, in fact, I think we've just received word from the state that they've approved additional publishers for the math curriculum. They started off with only 1 publisher, and we wanted to explore other options. So I think they're now up to, I think it's 3 publishers now, and we're making final determinations. And from what I've been told, we should have a decision on the math curriculum that we intend to purchase by April. So that'll be well before the end of this fiscal year, which will satisfy the requirements of these funds. $100,000 was set aside for reimbursing school activity funds. That money has been pushed back to the schools to reimburse their activity funds. So that money has now been received by our schools. And this is for things like covering the cost of community events, graduation, things like that. So that money has been pushed back to all of our 5 schools. And then finally, $200,000 of that money was set aside with the idea of allowing us to use it as a catalyst to kick off some discussions about reopening the vocational building between the middle school and the high school. So I wanted to give you guys really kind of an update on the work that we've done in that area. As you guys know, $200,000 is not going to open that building. And we're on a rather tight timeline. So I want to let you know what's kind of happened in that short amount of time. I did speak with Bryce Young at the county and talk to him about maybe some next steps. He was on vacation last week, but he's going to come back and walk the building and give us a pretty good idea of what he thinks from his mindset. But he gave me a very good point that we need to probably do first, and we are going to do first, is we're going to conduct a hazardous materials study. That building was built in 1968 and last used in 2008, according to what I've been told. So there's a potential that there's hazardous materials in the building. So when you renovate, you need to make sure that, asbestos, things of that nature are things that are mitigated for. So we have scheduled with a company that's going to do the hazardous materials study. It's a modest cost, and they can complete that study on March 12th. So that's pretty quick turnaround, and we're pleased to have that done at that time. According to Mr. Young, that's really going to kind of set the stage for what's next. If they find a decent amount of hazardous materials, or it's a lot to mitigate, then we probably have to go the route of exploring a feasibility study or trying to figure out how we go forward from a professional nature with some larger architectural firms and see what they can do in terms of getting that building back up and running. If we find that there's not much to mitigate and there's not much concern in that building, then there's a potential that maybe we can piece out some of these projects and get it done for substantially cheaper than what we know we would pay through an architectural firm. So I've reached out to 3 firms so far. One of them has not got back to me. One of them has already submitted a proposal. The other one is meeting. We were supposed to meet last Thursday. He had to cancel because he was sick. He's coming Wednesday. I'm taking our instructional team over to the building. We're going to walk the building, and we're going to get an idea of not only from an instructional standpoint what we want to put in that building in terms of vocational programs, but also what the nuts and bolts of the building look like, and start to get an idea of what it's going to take to get that building back up and operational. Met with the instructional team outside of meeting with the architects, and we're really starting to take a look at some of the data we have. We have student survey data, we have industry standards, we have a number of other pieces of data that are going to lean heavy into the programs that we need to consider in the building. There's a lot of great ideas right now. We haven't nailed those down yet in terms of the programs, but between ourselves and the folks that are coming through the building to take a look at the building, we're hoping to have all of that laid out before we, begin to really plan for that building. So that's where that sits right now. I don't know how far $200,000 is going to go in the next 3 months, I think. But we certainly do appreciate the money from the Board of Supervisors. It will help us get this idea kicked off. But that's kind of where we stand today in terms of progress made on those projects. I'll stop if there's any questions or comments from board members. I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks for looking into that. I know that a lot of people are anxious to get it up and running and get some good programs in there. So appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. We have the joint school board and board of supervisors meeting that I believe we have settled on a date.
Yes, Madam Chair. So if I may, there's been a lot of moving parts, a lot of discussion, as we all know, with these 2x2 meetings, and now we're going for a 5x5 meeting and trying to get everybody together. So between myself and Mr. Smolnik, I think it's the March 10th date is the one that it works the best for 12 people. It is scheduled right now for 5:30. And I'd like some feedback from you guys on not the time and date at this point, but in speaking with Mr. Smolnik today, the two ideas that were discussed in terms of really broad topics to cover at this meeting are facilities and where we stand with facilities. And then secondly, obviously our operating budget. So the desire is really to just kind of talk about where we are with capacity and enrollment and not only within our school buildings, but I think there's a lot of, and I think it's in your world too, as far as mine, there's a lot of conversation about what are we going to do with the school board office? What are we going to do? Where does the elementary school project stand? Where are we with the vocational building? And then on the county side, where do we stand? Where do they stand with the courthouse, the old courthouse? There's just a lot of moving parts right now. And I think it would really behoove us as county administrator, superintendent, and two boards to probably not dig down to the details, but take a 30,000-foot view of where we stand in terms of facilities in the community and see if we can't come up with some commonalities and some common goals in terms of that, because it really starts to drive what we intend to do moving forward. So I think it would be beneficial for us to get on the same page with where we are with facilities. And then secondly, Mr. Smolnik has requested that we provide them the budget presentation and then field any questions that they may have for the FY26 operating budget presentation. So any feedback on that or anything you would like me to relay to Mr. Smolnik, I would greatly appreciate.
Madam Chair. I know you've already met with Mr. Smolnik and you've already shown him the budget and he shared that with all of the Board of Supervisor members. Okay.
Yeah, so he hasn't done a presentation yet, right, but they all have our budget books.
A copy.
They all have our budget books.
Okay. I'm just, it would be, this is just a thought, okay? It would be nice if there was, if asked some of the Board of Supervisors go through some of the books, some questions they may have ahead of time. In other words, again, you don't want questions of getting into the deep details, but maybe some of the broad questions. I'm just wondering how it would be very valuable if we, walking into that meeting, we knew some of the big questions that several of the Board of Supervisors might have. Now, this is difficult because obviously Mr. Smolnik doesn't know that. And it would have to kind of go through the chair to ask, but I would think as a Board of Supervisors, and I'd like to know too, if I'm walking into this meeting, what are the big, I'm guessing as to what I think they are. I've spent some time speaking with T.C. Collins, and it's been a month or two since I spoke with Kathy, but I would like to know before we go in, what are some of the big concerns they may have? Is that possible, Dr.
That sounds like a great idea.
Reach out to the chairperson of the Board of Supervisors and ask him if he can,
even in an email, they can individually email back.
Right. I can do that before next Monday.
Okay, that would be great. Because what happens a lot of times is that would accomplish two things, in my opinion. One is that it would kind of maybe force them a little bit as, okay, let me look at this right now, because they would understand the value of that. And number two, it would help is if they're all of a sudden it's being presented on Monday and then they're looking at things and, oh, wait, what about this? It would avoid, I think, them getting into a lot of detail. Because if it's first presented, then immediately you're kind of looking at stuff where if they look at it ahead of time.
It would give us time to prepare
Yes,
answers.
yes, 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 yes. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, next, we have our morale and cell phone survey results. They've all been posted, and what we're gonna do with this data is just kind of analyze it and put it in a
Is this just for me? You said David? It doesn't matter, go ahead.
Anyway, we're gonna use it as a baseline for how we can improve things in the future. So we'll take the feedback, and then in 6 months or so, we'll send a survey out again, and hopefully, based upon the feedback that we receive, we can make some adjustments and changes and get more positive feedback the next time.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, so we're not going to discuss this then? We're just, what?
I mean, we can, sure.
Well, no, we don't have to. I'm just wondering. I mean, I came prepared, but I was thinking it's just going to be a 3-hour meeting. So we don't necessarily have to. I just wonder if there's a format in which we might be able to discuss this. I have some ideas, but I'd just like to hear from some other board members.
Yeah, I was, when I was looking through it, I was wondering, you said that the data was going to be analyzed, and I'm trying to figure out, are we just individually analyzing the data, or do we have a data analytics person that can help us? That's what okay. So we have to be the data analytics person. Okay, got it. All right, so if that's the case, then yeah, we are gonna have to have some sort of discussion on it. I looked at it as well, and there are some things that we can correlate and talk about and fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could even talk about sort of a paradigm or something, just an example, we don't have to do this, such as anything that reaches 30% or higher of a concern, 25%, we would come up with some percentage. You know, those are things that maybe 15 or 20% or less, we'd say, okay, that may be a small concern, but let's really deal with those that are, especially in the negative idea, if it's say over 25 or 30%, we really need to talk about those. Just maybe sometime, and maybe even individually, we could email you, Madam Chair, and just, because I was thinking along those lines in terms of what Carrie was talking about, and analyzing that data, using some percentages as a paradigm, and not simply talk about everything.
I think that's a good idea. Look at the things that the higher percentages.
Right.
Okay, that'll
But you're
work.
always going to have, with every one of these, you're going to have that 10, 12, 15% that are going to be against it. But when we get up into numbers of 25 or 30%, that's probably something we should look at.
Frank.
Madam Chair, Dr. Boyd, excuse me. I think we had 273 responses to this time out of 715. The last one we did, I think we had 272. I believe that was out of 700.
72. This one is 272 total, the new one. I'm
Okay.
looking at it right now.
But I mean, numbers are way down. How do we get those numbers up?
It's tough. And I'll tell you, it's tough with any type of, it's not just here is tough. It's tough with surveys like this, because as much as we try to convince folks that it's anonymous, there's still hesitation. That's part of the concern. I think another part of the concern is what we've heard tonight of you want me to do something else. I think that's part of it. But really, it's not, these are similar numbers that we see when we get information back from the state as well, in terms of survey results. So I can certainly brainstorm and see what we can do, see if we can provide opportunity, or I don't know if we want to go as far as incentivizing it. I don't know if we can, but trying to figure out some ways to see if we can increase participation rate is something we can think about.
I mean, right now we're getting about a third of the population.
Yeah,
right.
It's about a third.
I think, I may be wrong, Madam Chair, but I think that that's pretty standard when it comes to surveys. I know that just in the past, whether it's school or other things, when you see 30, 35, 40%, pretty much standard about the people that will respond to a survey. I don't know about providing incentives. There's lots of negatives about that.
Yeah,
They'll do the survey and, okay, well, I want to get that, so I'm going to do this, I don't know about that. But I don't think that this is abnormal. I think this is kind of a normal response, Mr. Frank. I could be wrong, but I think so.
Thank you, Mrs. Higgins, for doing that for us, and your time will not be wasted.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Okay. Now let's discuss our policy about promotion and retention. This is just a discussion item to open up that conversation about, because when we looked at it, we actually have a pretty solid policy. We maybe just need to make some adjustments to it. So
Yeah, so the first in the packet, you'll see the policy actually isn't much. It basically just says we have a policy on retention. Where the meat of it is if you go into the regulation. And the regulation, although dated, is not far off from what our practice is right now in talking to our instructional team. We do need to, and I think this is a very good exercise and probably a good conversation or at least the beginning of a good conversation in talking about promotion and retention, because the policy hasn't been revised since 2014. So it does need to be updated. We use different terms now. We go through different practices and procedures. I can tell you that if you dig into the regulation right now, in summary, what it is if you believe you have a kid that's performing below grade level, then you pull together a team of professionals, classroom teacher, school administration, counselor, and then anyone else, maybe school psychologist, resource teacher, and then the parent as well. You're required to do that. If you believe that there's deficiency, you're required to do that before the end of the first semester. And really in that meeting, what you try to come up with is any type of modifications or accommodations you can use to see if you can address those deficiencies. It's not written in this policy this way, but what we use now is a program. It's our SBIT team. Okay, they get together. They do this very same thing now. They continue to develop this plan and work it through the second semester. During the second semester, they continue to meet, and at the conclusion of the second semester, if these modifications or accommodations were unsuccessful, then they have a deeper conversation about promotion or retention. Looking at our numbers, we have not retained many students in the past, although we do have a number of these meetings. In fact, I think it's worth briefly sharing with you because I kept the note. Let me just pull this up quickly. I think this year so far, let me make sure I don't misquote this. Oh, of course, my computer doesn't want to work now. Here it is. I'm sorry. This year, the SBIT team on the elementary school level for the 24-25 school year has had 147 meetings regarding 51 students who are not meeting grade level standards. The reasons for these concerns vary, which is important when we're having this conversation. They include suspected disabilities, attendance issues, behavior, and illness are common reasons for these retention or these SBIT meetings that could lead to retention. Sometimes the issues are not academic. Sometimes they're social. Sometimes they're emotional. Sometimes they're not in the school. Some of these students are now eligible. We find them eligible for special education because of this process. We find them eligible for 504s because of this process. And some others are making sufficient progress now after these meetings and after these modifications and accommodations. Many of these students right now are receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, which are our highest level of interventions in terms of trying to address any learning deficits. While no decisions have been made regarding retention yet, all assistant principals have confirmed that at least one meeting has been held with those 51 families that are in question right now. So the process is in effect. The policy most certainly needs to be updated. I can tell you, as I've begun to discuss this with our school board office team and our building level teams. They're very interested in engaging in the conversation with the school board and maybe even providing a presentation to you guys on what they do, what they could be doing, and what we could do to help support them in that effort in terms of updating the policy. So I know this is just kind of a kickoff, but I wanted to provide some of that information on the front end.
Mr. Bush?
This is a big area, and it is something I'm glad that we're talking about. You know, this concept of social promotion, really, it's referring to advancing the student in the next grade level, regardless of whether they've mastered the curriculum or not. And it's almost as if I have no problem with retaining a student if they haven't mastered the curriculum, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that they do master it. But I have a big problem with simply socially promoting them because of their age. In other words, if they haven't mastered the curriculum, and then we socially promote them, that term is not even anywhere in the policy, and I'm kind of glad it's not, but still, that's still a reality. If we promote them simply because we're afraid of their age and them getting too far behind socially, I think that's the real danger. And again, this gets into a whole lot of philosophy. In other words, this gets into ages of kids. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of research on this. You know, in grades, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to about grade 5, to retain somebody does not have the significance it does if you retain them at 6, 7, and 8, and so on. I just think that this is, and it might be good to have a presentation with somebody that's done a whole lot more research than I have. I just know that the practice of advancing a student that has not mastered the curriculum because of their age is a dangerous practice, because in my opinion, a lot of times, not always, there's exceptions, it would mean that later on they're probably going to end up failing anyway.
I agree. I think that we need to maybe take your offer up and get a presentation or whatever if the board, it's the board's will to, have some feedback from the staff.
Yes, and Madam Chair, if I may, Dr. Wood, at the same time, if we can find some effective alternatives to the retention and the social promotion. I mean, neither one of those are good, no matter how you look at it. But if we can find some effective alternatives to those things, and with some data supporting what we have. I mean, I don't even know how many, well, you said we have 51 right now, but I mean, what did we have last year, what was the year before? And of those 51, I mean, it's too early to track them right now to see what happens when they get to high school. Are they the problems in the classroom at the high school, or they, what happens there?
Those are excellent. That's an excellent suggestion. I'll see if we can pull together a presentation if the board is okay with that. See if we can get some longitudinal data, how far we can go back, and see if we can figure out some outcomes. And then I think a great idea is figuring out what type of interventions and what type of practices. I can tell you as we know, there's no silver bullet. But if we had a number of options in our tool belt in terms of how we can address these students that are behind grade level, so that we can throw a lot at them and see if we can't see anything that becomes successful so that we can get them back on track to graduate. Because social promotion is not the answer, and we certainly need to make sure that we prepare these students not only for graduating from high school, but post-secondary opportunities and making sure they're successful citizens in our community.
Also, if I may, Madam Chair, just to make sure, in having that research, that the earlier that you can detect an issue, obviously the better. And there's a tremendous amount of research out there in detecting the potential of possible not being able to master something, and just they're barely making it, and dealing with that maybe at the elementary level rather than waiting until they get. And anyway, part of the presentation, just make sure we get into some of that research, because there's a lot out there.
Oh, yes.
And especially in terms of dealing with it in the younger ages, not waiting until they get older.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate the guidance from the board. Yep. This will be a good conversation and a good effort.
Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay.
I just want to make sure it's not something else that we're adding to the plates of the teachers.
No, I think this will be our instructional team from the school board office. Really, this affects a lot of areas, and I'll be honest with you, it's an exciting topic for many of our school board office personnel because it's directly focused on what we can do to help kids. And when we had this conversation in our supervisors and coordinators meeting, there's a lot of folks that spoke up and said, hey, this is part of my department. Oh, this is also part of my department. Might be able to help from here. So I think this effort is one that doesn't feel like extra. It feels like good work. Yeah.
Maybe even be able to help the workload.
Yeah. I mean,
do a better job identifying and doing some interventions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Does anyone have committee reports? Mr. Bush?
Yeah, I did I have the SEAC meeting since we visited last? I think I already reported on that. But we did go to ATI, and it was the Academy of Technology and Innovation, and had a meeting last Wednesday. And Dr. Boyd and I were, along with all the other divisions that are involved with this, were very impressed. This is that first year that ATI has been open. And what she has accomplished, Dr. Towery, is just really astounding, what she's been able to do in the first year of opening something up. And again, I think I mentioned this last time, when we actually visited Dr. Boyd and I during the school day and saw the actual activities they were doing, and the way those kids were engaged was phenomenal. I mean, it was very exciting seeing, you know, not only some of the college professors coming in and helping, but then the engagement of which the kids were doing some very things that I would have been interested in doing. I would have loved to have stopped and been involved with many of the things that they were doing. Anyway, I think we made a very good decision on moving forward with the ATI. It is a little expensive, but I think it's very valuable for our kids. And also budget-wise, she's done a great job too, because she got a big grant, but she has done a good job when that grant is done. She's done a very good job because it's going down every year. And at the time when the grant is over with, she has figured out a way that she'll be able to just continue to move forward. Anyway, so very impressed with what's going on, and I think we made a good decision with that. And that's the only committee. I have a meeting with SEAC day after tomorrow on Wednesday, but that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mrs. Davis?
I'm good, no.
Mr. Frank?
No, there have been some meetings, but I've not been able to attend.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Nothing to report.
Okay, all my meetings are coming up in the next couple of weeks as well, so I have nothing to report. Now we have the superintendent's report.
Yes. Should I start with the relatively good news? Yes? All right. All right, so we did hear back from our healthcare, and we were expecting a 20% increase, and it's going to be 12%. So that's good news. It's cost savings there. So I've got Miss Williams crunching numbers right now. I think it'll be somewhere in the ballpark of $400,000 to $500,000 cost savings just from that. So that'll be good. We'll update the budget presentation, and we should have that prepared for our joint meeting. That update. I had a very busy weekend. As I don't think we said publicly, but we did have our job fair this weekend, which went wonderful. Every year they just one up it, and it gets better and better. And as a result, we're attracting good talent to King George County Schools. Also, we don't have a student rep this evening, but from the kids side of things, I don't know if you guys are on the same email feeds that I'm on, but we had an amazingly successful weekend. I had emails from DECA, Criminal Justice, FBLA, and NJROTC Drill Team all going off on competitions this past weekend and bringing home awards. So we do a wonderful job in King George County Schools as far as extra programs and things of that nature. So it's just a blessing to work for a school division that has really dedicated individuals that provide for our students, and we see it every year at this time. Moving forward, we did receive, or the chair did receive, an invitation for the NJROTC ball. So we'll have to have a conversation and determine what we want to do in terms of that. As far as attendance is concerned, it's always a great event. 3 more things. Let me see if I can put them in the right order. Tomorrow night is the annual VSBA Regional Spring Forum. So that's event last year was at Westmoreland High School. We all went last year. I'm hoping that most of us can attend this year. We will be in Caroline. It's a little closer. It's at Mattaponi Springs, the Barns at Mattaponi Springs. I haven't been there, but I heard it's a very nice venue. And they always celebrate students there, so it's a nice evening. That's tomorrow night. I'll be driving. If you want to drive yourself, feel free. But if you want to jump in, then we're here to take you there as well. March 12th is the reschedule for the Reverse Career Fair. If you haven't seen one of those at the high school, it's an event that is worth seeing. I think Mr. Frank and I went last time, and it's one where our students are on display. They do a wonderful job of answering interview questions. And we also get a number of community organizations, community folks that come out and interview our students for their particular jobs that they aspire to. So that's something that if you can make it, I would suggest trying to make it. And then finally, if you haven't received it, we did receive an invitation at the school board office for the county's courthouse ribbon cutting, which is the 21st of March at 2 p.m. So if we can make it to that, that certainly I think would be well received if we had some attendance there in terms of the school board. And I think I can stop there, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Mr. Frank, time for board comments.
I just want to thank all the teachers and staff for all that they do. I know the trenches that you're in because I've been there also. So I know what you're running out there. Also like to shout out to Mr. Watson. I've gotten several phone calls and talked to other people, and the phone policy is beginning to work well at the high school. So thank you for that, Mr. Watson. I appreciate that.
Ms. Cleveland?
I'm so excited to hear about the insurance. Our talks are going to be a lot easier now. That makes me feel so happy. So thank you for sharing that and giving us some positive tonight. And also about the job fair success. It was so nice to hear all of the folks that came out to the job fair wanting to seek a position with King George County Schools. That also makes me feel really good that they're looking for employment here in our county. I want to thank the teachers for coming out and sharing some feedback about the change in schedule. I know that changes are hard. I know that they work very hard and need those days. But I am going to stick by, I think we made the best decision rather than adding these days to the end of the school year, rather than adding them to Saturdays or even on spring break. So I appreciate the feedback and definitely will be thinking about that as we go into the calendar for next year about some alternatives that could possibly be made to make sure that we have enough time available in the day to complete the training. When you hear staff tell you that they don't have enough time to do their training, we really need to take that seriously and think about ways that we can make sure that happens.
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. Mr. Bush?
A few things. First of all, I want to thank the middle school band. It's great what they've accomplished and what they're doing. It was very nice to see them. And then also, again, I agree with Ms. Cleveland, the insurance, what a great announcement that was, to know that it's only 12% rather than 20, which saves a massive amount of money, obviously for the school, but even more so for the teachers and the staff. So very excited about that. Also, I agree. I think that this whole calendar change thing, I know we received a lot of emails and appreciate the teachers that came out tonight and said something. And I did want to say something. We probably could have done a better job communicating that. I don't disagree with that. But I agree totally that when you look at the students and the ones that can still learn just as well with asynchronous learning, we learned from the pandemic, there are a few that obviously did fine. But we had a significant number that not having the face-to-face teacher instruction had a significant negative impact on a large number of students percentage-wise. And with that in mind, and a lot of other kinds of research that we know, that students perform a whole lot better when they're sitting in front of a teacher. It just, that type of instruction is definitely better than any asynchronous learning. So with that in mind, really, there were only three choices in my mind to make sure that we would have that kind of learning, and that was one is that we use some of the teacher workdays like we did, the decision that we made. Another one would have been, I think Ms. Cleveland already said, is we could have taken some Saturdays. Another one, which a teacher mentioned, is we could have taken some spring break days And the last one, and really the worst, was we could have taken some days in the summer. I noticed that Dr. Boyd and I, when we were at the board meeting for ATI, there was some discussion that some of the divisions are adding days to the school year in the summer. And I just think that we might have got a whole lot more emails if we'd have been adding days in the summer or taking spring break days or having to come on Saturdays. So I think with that in mind, knowing that what is best for the students and that in-person instruction, definitely they achieve more. Even though we could have done a better job with communicating, I agree with Ms. Cleveland and with the administration. I believe we made the best decision. And I also agree that we always need to be aware to provide more opportunities for our teachers to have that training that they need and is required, and try to give them even more opportunities to do so. And we'll try to do even a better job with the calendar in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mrs. Davis?
I want to thank the King George Middle School band coming out today. That was refreshing, especially after, I think all of us, everyone here today is going through a lot in their life right now, and a lot of storms, as Pastor Davis was mentioning. I want to thank Pastor Davis for always being willing to come out and fill in when nobody else shows up to do invocation. He's our backup, but he's always there and ready to serve. So thank him for always being willing. For the teachers that came out and took time out of their day to come out and speak and share their concerns, I thank you. I do want to mention I didn't like hearing secret meetings because that's against my character. One of the reasons it was so fast is because I was super sick and I had Dr. Boyd on hold on whether I could meet and show up for that meeting. There were other 2 board members that couldn't make it, so it was up to me on whether I could make it, and I did not know if I was going to be able to make it till that morning when I texted him and said I can come in. So that was the whole secret meeting, which wasn't a secret meeting. So it hurts when I give my time constantly. I'm always in the schools. That means I'm losing pay from my work and coming into schools and being part of the classrooms, and then to be accused of having like that character of secretly trying to make things hard on people was kind of hurtful. But we did hear you. Like Kathy and David said very well. I think y'all both said it very well. As far as we can do better with trying to communicate those things better going forward. There was something else. And to come at Miss Hoover, who does more, of giving of herself and the time that she takes out all the time from work and the stuff that she's going through in her personal life on top of a full-time job with the demands that's happening with the government, and then showing up for school board and taking time off to teach kids how to do hot cocoa mix. The truth of the matter is that there was a ChatGPT post made by a teacher of some sort. I was told this by a teacher who was invited to be a part of it. So we got bombarded with a copy and paste email that was changed a little bit to make it their own, but was bombarded with ChatGPT email about why we had a secret meeting. So she didn't have enough time to answer every single one personally. And it was the same answer that she was going to give. So that's why I am speaking for her, because she's got a very heavy heart right now with things that she's going on in her life. And I know how much time she gives of herself. So I just felt like that needs to be considered. And I'm sorry that came at you like that, being the chair. So let me see what else I got. I think the survey, last survey we only had 76 fill out that survey. So this one we had 272, which I would like to see a lot more, because that helps us when we do have how we can address things. But so far it looks, I like what I'm seeing. It looks overall positive. So thank you for the ones who do take the time to do the survey, because that helps us be able to help you or make your job easier. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I just also would like to thank all the teachers that came out to give their feedback about the calendar change, and we absolutely will take into consideration doing better with timing and more notice, and apologies for that. But again, it wasn't a secret meeting. I'm just excited about all the positive things that Dr. Boyd mentioned, all the wins we came home from with this weekend, the middle school band. Those are some amazing kids. If anybody was paying attention to how much time and effort and how many years they've been involved musically. We always have such great kids. And then the gifted advisory presentation, I really appreciate. I sit in those meetings and they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that. So I appreciate everybody that came out to support that. Just thanks. Let's just do good things this week in school. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.